Hello. So in today's story time, I am going to talk about my experience in foster care. And so, yeah, it's about time I share my experiences. From when I was 14 to 16 years old, I lived in foster homes. And this is a way to honor my teenage self, my younger self, what I went through, and also I'm sharing about my foster care experiences living in foster homes in hopes that it helps somebody out there. And so, yeah, where to begin? Okay, so my name is Maria. So when I was 14 years old, my younger sister and I got put into foster care. The reason for it, so trigger warning, I will be talking about some of the reasons I was put in foster care with my sister, and it does have to do with abuse. I probably won't go into detail, but I'm just letting anyone know, trigger warning, that I will probably be talking about some stories and experiences about abuse. So if you don't want to listen to that, that's okay. And I think it is important. I know it's important to share some of what I went through and why I ended up in foster care. And so when I was 14, I had a moment of feeling severe depression. I didn't know that's what it was at the time. I had been struggling with depression for a few years by the time I was 14 years old. And it had to do with the abuse that I was going through living at home with my parents, especially my dad. And so when I was 14, I knew that there was a mental health clinic. I already had a counselor there. I had sought out help myself when I was 13. I had gone to some counseling sessions when I was 13, but I wouldn't talk about the abuse that I was going through. And because I had a feeling something severe would happen if I talked about the abuse. And so I'd go in there, and I think I was just hoping that the counselor would figure it out, or just have some intuition, figure it out and help me in some way without having to share what was going on. And so skip forward about a year later, I'm 14, and I didn't go to school that day. I was struggling with depression and insomnia, and just feeling very distraught and feeling very, very fearful. I didn't know what was going on with me. Looking back, I know my nervous system was having such a hard time with all the extreme abuse that I had been experiencing for several years by then. And so since I already had the connection with the mental health clinic in the little town that I'm from, I called. I had the number and I called, and I remember just saying that I needed help. I didn't really have the words to explain how I was feeling and what I was going through. And I did know that I needed help. I wanted someone to help me. So the person that picked up the phone at the mental health clinic, I don't remember the guy's name. It was a man, and I remember he had a friendly voice, and he asked me if I needed to be picked up. And I said yes. Thank God. Thank goodness that he asked if I needed to be picked up, and thank goodness I said yes. And so this man from the mental health clinic, he might have been a social worker or just someone that worked. I know he was somebody that worked at the mental health clinic. He came, picked me up, you know, and I left and I went to the mental health clinic. And so, and that all took place October 1997. Very significant because that's the day my life completely changed. And so I remember being at the mental health clinic, and they took me into a room, and there was a couple people. I think there was a counselor and maybe some social workers or a social worker, and they kept asking me what was wrong. Whew, I might get a little emotional. And I almost didn't have the words to express what was happening. I didn't know exactly what was happening to me. And I don't know if I don't remember if I said any words or anything, but I remember, I don't think I said much, just that I wasn't feeling well. I might have said I wasn't feeling well. And that's might have been what I said when I first called the mental health clinic, that I wasn't feeling well and that I needed help. And so here I am in the room at the mental health clinic, and they're asking me, and I'm having a challenging time telling them what's going on at home. And I'm sure they already suspected stuff, since I was so distraught, so I think they could see it in my face and my body language. And so then after asking me, and I don't know how long it was, right? This was such a long time ago, and it was pretty traumatizing and stressful for me. That's when they take out the dolls. And for anyone that does not want to watch this part, I'm going to talk about SA just a little bit. So they take out the dolls, and then they are saying, is someone at home touching you? And they pointed at certain parts on the doll, and that's when I lost it, and I just broke down. Whew, it still brings up a lot of emotion for me. I just started crying a lot, and it makes sense, because yeah, I was experiencing abuse of all kinds. So physical, extreme physical, sexual abuse, verbal, emotional. I was being screamed at and just called so many bad words, like the worst words you can think of. And sometimes this was happening on a daily basis. And being as sensitive as I am and an empath, oh man, it was so hard, so rough. You know, experiencing heartbreak over and over again in my own home at the hands of my own father. And yeah, so, and at this point, when I was 14 and at the mental health clinic, at this point, my mom had already left. She ended up developing severe schizophrenia, or a severe mental illness, schizophrenia. And she ended up getting taken out of the house, and she was gone, right? yeah, so, all right, I'm just gonna take a deep breath. I've definitely done a lot of healing, tons of healing over my childhood experiences. I've healed a lot of it, and it is still hard to talk about because it was extreme abuse that I lived through. And okay, so then the mental health clinic workers realize that I'm experiencing severe abuse, and they make the decision that I'm going to be put in foster care. They made the decision to, also they told me, we're gonna go get your sister. My sister was in elementary school at that time. I was a freshman in high school. And so they said they're gonna go pull out my sister from the elementary school, or pick her up after school, I think it was, and then bring her to me. Oh, and that was super hard. Cause I was 14, my sister was probably, she was 8 at the time, or she might have actually just had a birthday, so she was 9 at the time, still very little. And so they bring her to me at the mental health clinic, and she's crying, she's scared, she doesn't understand. I think they were asking her about the abuse. My sister never said a word. She never said anything bad about my dad, or not necessarily bad. She never said any truthful things about my dad and what he was doing to me and what he did to my brother. He was very abusive to my brother, my older brother, but by that time my brother had already ran away. And so let's see. So my sister's crying, I'm having a hard time. I think I broke down a few different times that day. And then they tell us, we're gonna be placed in a foster home, a temporary foster home, until we get placed at a permanent foster home, or at least a long-term foster home. And so I remember a social worker, I think she was a social worker, she transported us to our first foster home, and she gave us like a little stuffed animal. Whew. She gave us like a little stuffed animal each. And I remember she was trying to be really gentle and nice and kind and everything. I think they all were. And yeah, so then we're taken to our first foster home in Willows, and we lived there for 4 months. And the first couple months, maybe first few weeks, me and my sister had our own room. There was two twin beds, and that first night was super hard, man, especially that first night. So we're there and trying to go to sleep. My sister is on one twin bed, I'm on another, and my sister's like freaking out, crying, yelling at me that she hates me. Oh man. And that was very hard, because I was already going through all the stuff I was going through, And then to hear my little sister just yelling at me that she hates me. And then I think I remember saying like, hey, do you want me to leave the room or do you want me to go? And then she'd cry and be like, no. It's like she wanted me to be there. She was so mad. And I was the person there that she was taking out her anger on, and she was blaming me for us getting placed in foster care because I'm the one that said something about what was happening. So that night, super hard. I slowly started adjusting a little bit to living in a foster home, you know, and there's pros and cons. There was pros and cons in the foster care system. Yeah, did I want to be in foster care living among strangers? No, not at all. Not at all, right? Did I want to be in a safe place where I wasn't getting abused? Yes, of course. And my life depended on it. I don't think I would have made it another day, maybe another week in that home where that extreme abuse was going on. And so in foster care, I had the relief of, okay, at least no one's physically gonna hurt me here. At least no one's physically hurting me. No one's gonna abuse me here. They're not allowed to, they can't. So at least that there was some relief that in that, right? That, you know, we'd be taken care of. And the other pro too was I didn't have to take care of my sister like a mom. Like, so much responsibility was put on me at such a young age, from like around 9 years old. And it wasn't fair. It was abusive. To put that much responsibility on children is abusive. And so I had to take care of my sister, and it was hard. One of the hardest jobs I've ever done. And so in foster care, I could relax. Like, I didn't have to worry about her meals, about cooking meals for her, telling her to shower or brush her teeth, things like that. The foster parents, the foster mom would take care of that. So it was nice too that I was able to be a kid again a little bit, right? In a way, a teenager. All right, so we lived there for 4 months, and the foster parents, they're okay. They definitely had their flaws, like all humans do, right? Overall, I'd say they were decent foster parents. It seemed like they cared somewhat, right? And then, another hard topic to talk about. So when me and my sister got placed in foster care, that first home, we had so much head lice. And sometimes when I think about it, it really pisses me off that my dad did not take care of that. He was so neglectful and did not help us get rid of the head lice. I tried with my sister. I needed help. I didn't know exactly how to permanently get rid of them. So me and my sister lived with head lice. So she caught head lice first. And then we lived with head lice for like over a year. So by the time we got put into foster care, within like the first day or so of living in our first foster home, the foster mom and one of the teenagers that was a foster kid that was living there. They both helped me and my sister get rid of the head lice permanently. That was a godsend. And I just remember like how much head lice they took out of our head, right? It was awful. It was awful. To this day, I'm like have a phobia when it comes to lice, right? And so thank goodness that they helped us be free of the head lice. So like I said, there was pros to being in foster care. And like the biggest one, of course, was I wasn't being abused on a daily basis anymore. And so, yeah, so that was the first foster home. And then the second foster home, so we lived in the first foster home for 4 months. And then they found us a long-term home in Red Bluff. So I grew up in Willows, and that's where the first foster home was. The second foster home was in Red Bluff. And so me and my sister got placed in Red Bluff in our second foster home, and it was a woman, a single woman, and she was older. She was probably like almost 60, I'd say. She was Panamanian, or from Panama. I'm not sure if you say it that way. She was from Panama. She knew Spanish, so and I'm Mexican American, so, and I know Spanish, so similar backgrounds, right? And so we get placed there, and we lived there for a year. I remember going to the high school there, and it was a huge high school compared to the little tiny town that I'm from. I did not have a good time at the high school, not at all. It was very hard for me to make friends. And I really struggled with depression about that first year and a half. I really struggled with depression, and insomnia at times as well, where I couldn't sleep. And so it was really, there were days it was really hard to function. And like I said, that school was, thousands of kids were at the high school, and it was so hard, dude. I didn't like my high school experience there at all. And I mean, overall, I never liked high school. My home life was already so hard that, yeah, anyways, I just never liked high school, like the whole social aspect of it. Anyways, so then we lived, like I said, for 1 year in Red Bluff with this lady, and it was okay. Like, I remember she got along really well with my sister. My sister really liked her. She was interesting, and like I said, for the most part, she was a decent foster mom. There were times that, because now as an adult, I look back and she could be very emotionally immature. There was just moments where, and I remember her telling me, this foster mom telling me, that she would take things personally a lot from other people, or like from her own family, right? And there was times that we butted heads, right? Me and this foster mom. So that was hard. And in the end, because I felt like it was very difficult with her, like it got to a point where it got more difficult, I ended up telling one of the social workers that we had if we could be moved, if we could possibly go somewhere else. And so then we did. We moved back to, they found us a foster home in Willows. And then, so this is our third foster home. and this was a foster mom and a foster dad. And we lived in a 2-bedroom house. And so me and my sister had 1 bedroom. And so we moved, right? And again, these 2 people, they were decent foster parents. And we lived it here for a year. And I got to go back to the high school where I had been going before, and it was much easier for me because it was a smaller high school, and I got to reconnect with a couple of friends from the past. So it was a little bit easier for me to make friends. Not super easy to make friends, but it was easier. And then we lived there, like I said, for a year. I'll probably end up making another video if more people want to learn about more of the foster care experience, because there is a lot to tell. This is 2 years of content, right? And a lot happened. And basically at the end of, so about the time I turned 16, so from 14 to 16 we lived in foster care, and by the time I was 16, I got placed in they wanted us to go back, the foster care system, the court system, whatever you call it. They wanted us to go back to our mom. Our mom had popped back into the picture, and even though she was still had a severe mental illness, schizophrenia, and I didn't want to go back with her, and I didn't have all the words to express all the reasons, and I at least stood up in court and told the judge certain reasons, right, that were more practical, but they didn't listen to me. And so yeah, it's not just so this video is mostly about my experience living in foster care, and also in foster care I had to go through the court system as well. They're pretty intertwined, and the court system definitely failed me. The court system, there's a lot of shady shit happening in there. There's a lot of crap happening in there, and maybe I will make another video where I talk about the court system and the corruption that takes place within the court system. Yeah, and so I'm gonna end this because I think this has already gone on for a while. So the 2 years that I was in foster care, it wasn't the best of experiences, but it wasn't the worst of experiences. I was able to live in 3 different foster homes where there was no physical abuse, no sexual abuse, no abuse. The last foster home that we were in, there was a moment or two, one moment that really sticks out where the foster dad was severely verbally abusive. So there's that. The foster mom too was verbally abusive. It was the guy though, the foster dad that was severely abusive verbally to me. And anyways, I won't go into detail with that, but it's like, just gotta say, you know, it was hard. All the lived experiences that I've gone through. My teenage self went through so much. And then at 16, we get placed back with my mom, me and my sister, and I lived with my mom from 16 years old to 18 years old. And yeah, and then that has all kinds of trials and all kinds of challenges and some positives in there. And then at 18 is when I moved moved out of town to go to college, and yeah, and started a whole better life for myself. All right, I hope you enjoyed this. There was some really hard moments in there for me to talk about, and I think it's really important. I know it's really important. I don't hear very many adults talk about foster care or their experiences with foster care, and I don't know the actual statistics, if it's just 5% of the population, 10% of the population that ends up experiencing foster care. So maybe that's why we don't really hear about it, because not that many people go live in foster care. I'm not sure. Maybe it's a bigger statistic. I'm not sure. Anyways, I hope you get something out of this, and if you're someone that's lived in foster care, in a foster home, I hope you don't feel so alone, because I've been there. And if you're in a foster home right now, I hope you could hang on to hope, and that there are some positive people in your corner. I hope you have the support you need, and that you make it out of there better. And yeah, so if you want to leave a comment, you want to share your own experiences, go ahead, leave a comment below. Thank you so much for listening. So many blessings.